Hey everybody, Argent here. So I wasn't even going to originally do a top 5 worst movies of last year. Frankly, because the movies last year weren't that bad. They weren't really good. I wouldn't say it was a great year for movies. It wasn't a horrible year for movies either. It was kind of mediocre on average. There's enough movies to put on my, to do a top 5 top best movies and to actually like everyone on the list quite a bit. Even the bad movies on this list aren't that bad. They're bad, don't get me wrong, but there's movies that physically harmed me to watch, like Cold Souls, like Tree of Life, like El Topo, like Perfume. There's some other like Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, that physically harmed me to watch in theaters. And none of these are like that. There wasn't also, to my knowledge, any, other than the number one on this list, any kind of really epic, overproduced, over-budget pieces of shit. We didn't have John Carter. We didn't have Terminator Salvation. We didn't have Transformers 2. We didn't have Public Enemies. We didn't have Half-Blood Prince. And it's to a certain extent, the movies are also based on what I go to see. I see probably 25 to 30 movies a year. Some in theaters, some I just watch at home if I'm interested in them. So obviously I'm not seeing as many movies as a professional movie critic would. So because of that, I just don't see that many. And it also is genre dependent. I'll go see pretty much every horror and action movie or spy movie that comes out. I won't go see comedies pretty much ever, unless people drag me to them, in which case I almost always hate them. I'm trying to remember the last comedies I liked. I liked Youth in Revolt, and I liked The Way, Way Back. But Forgetting Sarah Marshall made me want to kill myself. So did The Hangover. And Funny People might be up there for the worst movie I've ever seen. So those are kind of what I'd say are the worst movies. Even the bad horror movies on this list aren't even near the top of the worst movies I've ever seen. So without rambling further, let's get into what I think are the worst movies of the year. Or I guess just one more note. When I say worst, I don't mean necessarily objectively the worst in all regards. Some of the movies on this list have good special effects, or they have an interesting premise. Or there might be worse movies, but I kind of have a bundle of factors. How well it does what it sets out to do. So if the movie's setting out to give a certain message, or to be an epic action film, or to give a certain emotion, how well does it achieve what it sets out to achieve? Overall, how coherent is the movie? Overall, how good is the acting? Overall, how good are the special effects, although these are proportionate to the type of movie it is and kind of what they're going for. I also grade a lot based on the budget and whether it's mainstream or not. Because if I wanted to make a top 5 worst movies, I just go find the top 5 most unbearably minimalist, boring art films I can, and then just make a list out of that. But that's not fair. Putting something like Cold Souls on this list is kind of like beating up the retarded kid in class. It's just not fair. Or putting Cachet or a Denise Arcand movie is just not fair. Which is part of the reason why Wolverine the movie is so shit, because it's a mainstream action movie with a big budget. But without further ado, before we get to the bottom 5, I have 2 honorable mentions I want to get through. The first honorable mention that didn't quite make the list is Blair Witch. Or I guess dishonorable mention. Why is Blair Witch on the list? It wasn't that bad a movie. It wasn't even that bad for a low-budget horror movie. My issue with it was it had big shoes to fill. Blair Witch 1 is one of the most commercially successful probably movies of all time. Also one of kind of the most influential and revolutionary movies of all time. Everybody remembers watching Blair Witch for the first time. Everybody remembers the hype. Everyone remembers questioning whether or not the movie was real. And no one was expecting the new one to really live up to that, but they were kind of hyping this, how they market it as They secretly marketed it. They had secret screenings of it. How they were pretending that Blair Witch 2, which was horrible, didn't happen. And then the movie came out, and it was pretty meh. The characters were obnoxious. It started out kind of interesting, but it kind of lost what made the original couple movies good. I mean, the original movie good, which was it was very ambiguous how much of it was supernatural, whether anything supernatural was even happening, or if it was kind of the psychological problems and fears of the characters imagining things. And kind of that and kind of the realism. And this one, they just kind of go through every horror movie cliche they can find. There's a billion jump scares. They get stuck in like a time loop. The Blair Witch is Slender Man. The Blair Witch gets them to like kill each other. They basically just took a whole bunch of Slender Man lore, tied it in with Blair Witch lore, and tossed out a movie. And it doesn't really seem like they edited it or thought it through. And it's just kind of a generic found footage movie. Ironically enough, the movie that spawned the genre and that every movie ripped off all the movies that it spawned. Well, I'd still say it's above average for a found footage film. This was like an actual series that has a pretty big name and actually had some money behind it, instead of some just kind of random film like the next one on this list that no one expected anything from. So The Blair Witch gets a dishonorable mention for worst movie of the year. Now, while this movie is probably worse, objectively speaking, than the rest of the movies on this list, I can't put it on the list because it was the first movie released of 2016. It's a horror movie, and it has Natalie Dormer in it. I mean, if you just look at the posters or the trailer, it looked awful. January is normally when they dump all the movies that they couldn't release at like a better time in the previous year. I went to see this knowing it was probably going to suck just because there was nothing else out and I wanted to go eat some popcorn and get away from... just get out of the house for a while. The movie is just kind of as bad as you think it would be. It's about this forest in Japan where people go to commit suicide. And Natalie Dormer goes there in search of her identical twin, if memory serves. And it's just this like kind of psychological, kind of supposed to be like cathartic spiritual redemption tale. But it's just immensely boring. It's a snoozer. The special effects are lame. It's inconsistent with the level of supernaturalism they want. The ending credits just completely are like, they're kind of like comedic and corny when the rest of the movie was really serious. There's like a semi-romantic, semi-like stalker subplot that doesn't really make a lot of sense and isn't really clear. It's kind of hard briefly to just say why The Forest is a bad movie. Basically, it's just a snooze fest of a horror movie that takes a semi-interesting premise and does absolutely nothing with it. The Horror is my second dishonorable mention, and now on to the 5 worst movies of 2016. Now, this will probably be controversial because I'm sure a lot of people like this movie. Midnight Special is the story of a father who escapes a religious cult with his biological son, Alton, and they're running from both the government and members of the cult after they discover that Alton has special powers, like being able to predict the future, being able to communicate telepathically with people, and is basically a god. They have to try to keep him away from sunlight, though, as if he's exposed to sunlight, his powers grow immensely and he goes out of control. Alton keeps saying there's a certain place they have to get him to where he will ascend, basically, and fulfill his destiny. So it's kind of an interesting premise. You have a kid with godlike abilities. I always like high-concept movies that revolve around a character trying to reconcile their humanity and basically having godlike powers. That was kind of why I like the character of Superman so much. Especially when I think they kind of focus on that aspect of him, what his duties and responsibilities are. They don't really go anywhere with it in this movie. Most of the movie is literally just the father and the kid driving around looking at comic books together or hiding. which I guess is realistic, but it doesn't really make for an interesting movie. When we actually get some kind of plot and or action scenes, they're very short and they're over almost immediately. Near the end of the movie, we get actually a pretty good action scene of them trying to get through the army who's blockading the place that Alton's running to. But it comes way too little too late. And then at the end, when we have the conclusion, it turns out that like Alton is an alien from another world, and then Alton just goes and becomes an alien, and it's just super lame. It's yeah, it's just a horrible waste of potential of a movie. It's an interesting premise. It's just very slow. It's very boring. It's just kind of bad. Rotten Tomatoes liked it, but the crowd didn't like it. So Midnight Special is the number 5th worst movie of 2016, and now we're gonna head to number 4. Now, Suicide Squad's probably the worst made movie on this list. It definitely feels like large chunks of the movie were cut out. There's plot holes the size of craters. The acting is universally atrocious. And the entire premise of the movie, that they're forming together a squad of villains to take down bigger villains, doesn't make sense when the main villain, Sorceress, was one of the villains who was recruited as part of the Suicide Squad. So the whole movie is basically them trying to clean up a mess created by creating them. Okay, I don't get it. As for the rest of it, it's just horrible acting, excessive use of famous songs in order to try to get a smile out of people, lame action scenes, and just generally it's an incoherent mess of a film that's very hard to follow and is utterly tonally inconsistent. Why it's only number 4 is because I laughed harder during this movie than just about any movie I've ever seen. There's a scene about like 70% of the way through the movie where someone's just died. It's just this really depressing emotional moment, and they all go into a bar together, and like the world's about to be destroyed, and it feels like they just took it from another movie, and they're all in this bar drinking and just having rambling reminiscences about the past, and they have like a whole bunch of flashbacks that have nothing to do with the actual movie. And it's just really funny because it's so out of place. So my friend Abstract and I were watching it in theaters, and I started laughing so hard I was like crying. And he still won't forgive me to this day because he started laughing because I was laughing so hard. So Suicide Squad is a terrible movie that's saved by being so bad it's kind of awesome. Maybe someday I'll do an edited video out of this because there's just so much like fun retardation that would make for a good edited video. So Suicide Squad is the 4th worst movie of 2016, and on to number 3. Yeah, you knew this was going to be on the list. I've talked at length as to why Assassin's Creed was shitty. That video was just out a week or 2 ago. But really, it was really bad. Not only did Assassin's Creed have nothing to do with the game it was based on, but they just made a lot of really strange choices with it. The Templars and Assassins really don't have a lot to do with their counterparts. The main character isn't Desmond, and the entire like plot that back in the Animus is completely pointless. Normally in the Assassin's Creed games, you have 2 plots that you care about. You care about Ezio, you care about his quest for revenge, and there's interesting characters both there and with Desmond. And it's fun to kind of get part of the way through one story, go to the other one and back. And it's kind of neat having 2 stories instead of 1. But in this one, both stories are shitty, and except that the one within it kind of works like this. The story in the present is shit, but it has slightly more plot. The story in the past is shittier, but it has like semi-okay action scenes. So the movie for me was like, oh, okay, this action scene is kind of fun. Why are they doing this though? Why is this who are these people? Why are they... I don't know, this is getting boring. I don't know why these people are fighting. Okay, I guess that scene's over now. And the present, it's like, oh, thank God we actually have dialogue. Okay, okay, what? Are they supposed to be having a romance? Why are they cutting off their funding in like 3 days? I don't know. I want the action scenes back. And if you're watching a movie with two plots, and every time one comes on, you want it to switch to the other, that's a really bad sign. Assassin's Creed is a bad movie for using basically committing a crime with the source material and how bad they adapted it. Of having incoherent writing, a stupid story, lame characters, and basically screwing up in every way possible. That being said, what were we expecting? And that's why it's not number one. It's a video game movie. The trailer looked horrible. The advertisements looked horrible. And this is a series that's degraded greatly over time, especially post Assassin's Creed trilogy. Assassin's Creed trilogy being Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, and Revelations, and making a billion side games just to make more money, and then inserting a shit ton of DLC into them. It's a movie based on a Ubisoft game, so what do you expect? The second worst movie of 2016 is The Purge election year. Now, I think it's debatable whether or not this should have been first. The movie that's first is worse because there's more expectation and there's less excuse for it to be shitty. This is a series that is kind of mixed. I thought The Purge 2 actually wasn't that bad. It's kind of an interesting concept, but The Purge kind of went from being sort of an interesting apolitical or less political movie about societal breakdown into a film about just blatant politicking. This movie was obviously about the election, as we have white Christian guy running against a proud liberal woman. Except the woman's hot, unlike Hillary, of course. So, for those of you who aren't really aware of the plot of The Purge, basically in the future, a cult called the New Founding Fathers added an amendment to the Constitution having the Purge. The purpose of the Purge is every year for one night, everything is legal, including murder, and you can kill anybody except for certain government officials who have protection, and all emergency services are disabled. And because of this, the poor basically massacre themselves every year, and the country has very little in the way of welfare or unemployment or other things. So America has become much wealthier, but is basically a totalitarian police state. And it's portrayed as the reason the Purge came about was there was a group of evangelical Christians who decided that the Purge is what God wanted, and it's in the Bible or something, and they perform human sacrifice during the Purge night. And then like the leader of them, who's like a pastor, is running for president. And in the trailer and in the movie, they even say, "I purge to make America great again." Very subtle. And like in the movie, the team, like the coalition of people who are going to bring down the white conservative government are like a like feminist bitch. Actually, there's a white guy, of course, because there has to be someone with agency. This fat black shopkeeper, some Hispanic guy, and like a coalition of like Marxist anarchist minorities like invade the Capitol and take the government down. And like to just sum up how shitty this movie is and how lame it is, there's a point where the Mexican guy says to the Hillary Clinton person, "Hey man, you gotta win Florida. If you win Florida, you win the election." And she's like, "Oh, I never thought of it that way. I never realized I had to win. Wow, I should fire my political consultants." And of course she does that unironically. And she wins the election because she focused on Florida because Jose told her to. So The Purge is just, it's just lame. It's trying to be a criticism of conservative politics when really this has nothing to do with conservative politics. If anything, it's kind of a letter of warning for the people who want America to become Brazil. Because the purge is basically what happens in Latin American countries, where the middle classes pay death squads to call the lower classes, including drug dealers, political dissidents, etc., so that they're able to live semi-normal lives. The Purge election year is, on top of that, an incoherent, shittily written movie with bad pacing, bad editing, and uninteresting characters. The Purge election year is the second worst movie of 2016. And now we move on to number 1. Now, Independence Day Resurgence may not be nearly as abrasively shitty as The Purge election year. It's not even a worse movie, objectively speaking, than a lot of the movies on this list. But kind of the issue is, and the reason why it's here, is that Independence Day Resurgence is a massive disappointment. There's no reason for it to be as bad as it was. They had tons of money. They had a good plot that they could easily have used for the sequel. But instead, like, a bunch of the original people didn't want to come back, most notably Will Smith, because it was beneath him. Which was probably a good thing, considering every movie Will Smith's made for, like, the last 20 years has been complete shit. So, not having Will Smith as back is good, but it didn't save the movie. Independence Day Resurgence is just really weird and kind of awkward. Like, kind of the premise is they've spent the last, like, 20 years or whatever using alien technology, building, like, all these alien super weapons. So when the aliens come back, they'll be able to fight them off. But the aliens come back and they have a bigger ship. A ship so large that it's a third the size of the planet, which is really lame. And they're going to drill down and suck out the Earth's core. So, like, the technology they built is completely useless. All their stuff gets destroyed in, like, 5 seconds. Most of the world is destroyed by the gravitational force and the impact of the thing landing. And it comes down to yet another fight in Area 51 where they win through bullshit. There's also, like, some other alien that's uploaded their consciousness into a robot that's going to, like, give them super advanced technology so they can lead the fight against the evil alien species for domination of the galaxy. Or some bullshit like that. The movie is confused. It's exceedingly tonally awkward, going between humor, going between kind of being epic, going between just kind of misery porn, when just everybody's dying. We have a lot of just references to the original, like with the president in this one basically blowing himself up with a nuke to kill the new ship. You have another scene where the guy's getting mind controlled, and then they shoot the alien that's mind controlling him through the glass. Remember how awesome that scene was in the original? Yeah, well, we have to shit all over it. So Independence Day Resurgence is boring. It's incoherent. There was no reason for the movie to really even be made, let alone for it to be this bad. They could have just said that it was the one alien ship in the first movie. They didn't even need to really bring it back. But if they were going to, they could have just done a better job and written a better story. Independence Day Resurgence is the worst movie of 2016, in my opinion, by virtue of it being a bad use of good source material. And a film that had a decent budget and was in production so long, there's no reason they couldn't have done a better job. So, I hope you enjoyed the list. I know it'll probably be controversial. Like I said, this one was kind of hard because none of these movies are nearly as bad as, like, the worst movies I've seen. They're all just kind of normal bad movie bad. So, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys later.